Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of what the fuck am I talking about this week? This week I am going to be talking about Mushishi, which is a really gorgeous, beautiful series that basically lets us know how being temporary is pretty okay. And I feel like a lot of people currently struggle with being temporary in a lot of people's lives, and even though it may not be like something that serious to you, I feel like a lot of people, oh my god, why do I look, okay, so if you're like an individualizer, I look a little greasy, I look a little funky, I don't know why I look the way I do, just pretend I'm a lot sexier than I already am. But regardless of that, I feel like this is something that a lot of people, especially my age and maybe a little bit older, struggle with, is that we want to be remembered, we don't want to be forgotten, but it's okay to be temporary. You may or may not see my cat in the background if you're watching this on YouTube. But yeah, I think watching and finally completing this series is something that I've been putting off for a while, because series like this I kind of like to savor. Like this and Dorohedoro are maybe two series that I kind of actually waited and enjoyed and took my time with. Unlike other series, like with Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen, I really kind of rushed through it a little bit, but I think I might reread them eventually, but that's not what I'm going to do today. Today we're going to talk about Mushishi and how gorgeous and cathartic of a series is. If you see my background, this is one of these screen caps. I don't know if it was for a promo or if it's just from the anime, but it is such a beautifully drawn and well-loved series by Yuki Urashibara, and it is an amazing series I think everyone should watch. If you're tired of having your heart ripped out by Akutame and other mangas right now, I highly recommend you take a break, maybe read Dorohedoro, read Mob Psycho, read One Punch Man, definitely watch Mushishi. It is so cathartic and such a like calming comfort series that even though we do deal with some serious subjects, like there is one episode where a mom basically leaves her son that she didn't want to have, gets struck by lightning, and by doing that Mushi actually gets attracted to him and attracts lightning because it's a lightning eater, I think. So yeah, let's get started. Let me take a sip of my coffee today. It's not sponsored, but I did get Dutch Bros and I'm kind of in love with it. It is such a good coffee. If you want something that's like not as like harsh as like your local coffee shops, and then not something that's like tastes like shit like fucking Starbucks, Dutch Bros is the way to go. I got all water because my ice is melted. Anyways, so what is Mushi? What are Mushi? Mushi are basically the things that aren't animals, aren't plants. They kind of just exist and do their own thing. While most aren't harmful, some can be harmful when they come into contact with humans. Like there is one that is an eyeball eater, there's one that's a sun eater, there's one that's a moon eater. There are some that will actually kill fetuses in pregnant women's wombs in order to give birth to their own like parasitic host and then give the family babies, but then also they spread poisonous seeds. So yeah, our main character Ginkgo actually is there to solve most of these cases. There are some where people wander off, people go missing, are attracted to Mushi or aren't attracted to Mushi. There are some who are ostracized by their communities because they can see these little beings. And that's where our main character more or less just comes and saves the day, makes it worse, makes it better. But at the end of the day, he is someone who, regardless of whether or not he fixed or made the problem worse, he will be there to help you out and he will see it to the end. And because he kind of has a large attraction of Mushi, he will not be in the same place as once. There was only one instance in the anime, I'm not sure about the manga, where we actually see him revisiting some characters because of a Mushi that the kid touched and that it actually like transported him to somewhere else, and then he had to awaken it with another Mushi. But again, humongous spoilers. If you already haven't watched the series, I highly recommend you pause this and then go maybe read a little bit or watch the first season. Season 1 is available on Hulu and season 2 is available on Crunchyroll, but again, you can watch the entire thing online probably. But if you do want to support the mangaka, there's only 10 volumes compared to a lot of other series. It's pretty short, but again, it is really gorgeous and really enjoyable. So what is our series about, and why does it go hand in hand with being temporary in people's lives? So this is information taken from the official Wikipedia page on Wikipedia, and then I also have some stuff that I took from the mushishi fandom wikia. Shout out to both sources. I found out a lot of cool information there as well. So I'm going to read straight from the Wikipedia because I feel like this is such a great way. Also, sorry if you hear my cat in his shit box. Apologies. This is just what being a cat owner is like. They never want to poop when it's quiet. They only want to poop when you're actually trying to do some stuff. So the series is an episodic anthology with no overarching plotline in which the only common elements are Ginkgo and the mushi. Ginkgo is a man with one green eye who not only can see various types of mushi but also attracts them. Because of his ability, he is constantly wandering and smokes in order to keep the mushi away. He appears to have a generally laid-back personality, however he can be very serious and focused. What am I even reading? Let me reread that sentence because I can't read even though I have glasses on. He appears to have a generally laid-back personality, however he can be very serious and focused on his work when it comes to protecting people from mushi. He stresses that mushi are not evil, but merely trying to survive like everyone else. Thus, like the weird parasitic one and the ones that eat your eyes, and the sun eater and moon eater mushi. A majority of the stories do not focus on Ginkgo, but rely on him as a catalyst to move the story forward by diagnosing or curing mushi-related illnesses and phenomena. Again, created by Yuki Urashibara, and the anime is directed and written by another author that I forgot to put their name here, but I will put it here if I choose to actually edit. Again, sorry to that person, but I actually looked at some manga panels earlier. I looked at some earlier when I was looking for the name of the episode. That's one of my favorites, and I'll talk about some of my favorite episodes a little bit later. But the art style in the manga is slightly different from the art style in the anime, and I think that's a very interesting artistic choice, specifically because a lot of people will have this theory that Ginkgo is a traveler or he was in a coma or something like that. But the reason for that is why, if you've seen my little background, the anime takes place between the Edo and Medo period, I believe, and watch me not even say that right. I will totally correct myself if I say this fucking wrong because I'm an idiot. But the original mangaka wanted to actually make the story take place in modern times, but again they switched the time of the era of the series and anime, and so that's why he has normal clothes and everyone else is wearing yukata and other traditional Japanese clothing. So he's not a time traveler, he just has different clothing than everybody because he actually has a turtleneck, coat, pants, and regular shoes, whereas everybody else kind of just has sandals and stuff like that. But there's, again, only 10 volumes, so if you do want to purchase the series, I highly recommend doing it. It's a lot different art style than the anime, but it's still extremely gorgeous and extremely detailed. Reminds me a lot of Berserk and Dorohedoro in that all of our world building, it's insanely gorgeous and has a lot of it has a lot of small details. Like if you are going to read it online, definitely recommend using a comic reader or a manga reader because you'll be able to see all the detail that it's in. Really, really gorgeous series. There's 2 seasons and 2 OVAs, one that serves as a series finale that I just watched before recording this because I wanted to finish it before I talked about my thoughts on it. I've been saying for the past literal half year I've been wanting to finish this series, and I guess I never wanted to finish it because it's such a good nurturing series, and not in like a fluffy or light way like other series are, like Orange High School Host Club, or the one that I've just watched, I think it's Kashi, I think that's the name of it, but it's basically like a candy series, or like Food Wars or anything other. I don't really try to watch all the light fluffy anime, but sometimes you need to, like Psyche K, just because you're getting your heart torn out by CSM and JJK and other things, and it's really, really nice to have that kind of relief. So let's talk about some of my favorite characters for today. There are a lot of the background characters that we see, including one that I really, really liked. I forgot to write about her, but I will talk about her a little bit later, but she's my favorite, I think. Her and Tanio, I think, are my favorite characters in this series. But Ginkgo is one of my favorites just because there's so little known about him, because he's just a little mysterious man. But in one of the series, one of the episodes, we actually get to see his background and how he got his white hair and green eye, and it's really sad. It made me really, really sad. It's kind of in the same way that we get introduced to Guts in Berserk, where Ginkgo's mom, while they were traveling somewhere, she actually, a rock or a tree fell on top of her and she passed away, and Ginkgo was just left there. Well, his actual given name is Yoki, and he looked completely different before he got transformed by a mushi. But his mom passed away and he didn't know what to do, so he kind of just stayed by her side for several days until another mushishi named Nui finds him and takes him to her place, and he gets healed because his leg is injured, so he literally cannot move away, and so he's just sitting with his mom who passed away. And it is very, very sad. It is such a sad introduction to our character, but we don't see that episode until about halfway through the first season. And I think as far as the manga goes, it's not until maybe maybe in like the third or fourth volume, but it is a very sad introduction to him. So Nui takes care of him, and he really doesn't want to leave her, but because she kind of has the same innate ability that Ginkgo does later on in the series, where mushishi are just constantly attracted to her. She really doesn't want to have anyone else there because she doesn't want anything bad to befall them. Because as we kind of know in our introduction, that the more mushi are attracted to you, you may get some that may not have evil intentions, but the way that they function can harm people. And so she doesn't want that to happen to them, and she's like, no, like, I need you to go away. And he then discovers Tokoyami. Forget what the Tokoyami is, but basically it sucks all of the like light and memories from you, and so you basically are turned into an entirely different purpose. And that's why Nui has the same white hair and green eyes as Ginkgo does later on in the series, because she met the Tokoyami. Eventually they get trapped by this one, and Nui sacrifices herself so that Yoki can go and live a regular life, but unfortunately the only way that Yoki can get out is sacrificing his memories and one of his eyes. And then that's how we meet Ginkgo in that episode, is that he's missing an eye, he has one green eye, and he has white hair, and he does not know anything that happened to him prior to him becoming Ginkgo. I think the shining one, the mushi that makes the lake shine, which Nui and Yoki stared at, that mushi's name is Ginkgo, and that's how he got named. That's the only thing that he remembered. And it made me so sad because he just wanted to live his life with her, and now he just doesn't remember her at all. And it's really, really sad. But that's Ginkgo. But later on, you can kind of see he really does care about a lot of people, and he really does cares about Mushi as well, which is why going into my next favorite character, Tanyu really enjoys his present. Tanyu is the fourth scribe of the Karabusa family, and if you don't know about the Karabusa family, the initial scribe and the initial person who battled the quote-unquote forbidden mushi, which is the one that is like coal, like it basically they sealed it away in their body and their entire body became black as coal, and because there's nothing is known about this mushi, all is known that there's no way to get rid of it. There is a way, but it takes a fairly long time. The way that it is absorbed and brought back throughout generations, because Tanyu is our fourth scribe, it is absorbed by the child, and whoever has children, once in a while they get born with a black limb, and that is basically the mushi that is living in their family bloodline. The way that it gets getting rid of is that the ink that they write with is a part of the mushi, and it slowly, bit by bit, gets sealed away by the current scribe. However, none of Tanyu's three ancestors have ever been fully able to seal it away, so she is hoping to write enough to where she's able to seal it away and travel with Ginkgo. That is her dream. She really loves mushi. Despite a lot of mushi, she's actively killing and treating them as vermin, and she really wants the curse to be ended. She wants the curse to end with her, because she does eventually want to. I don't know if she likes Ginkgo or whatever, but they have a really strong relationship, and I really enjoy her character because she's strong. She wants to defy everything. In her introduction, and we get to learn more about her character, she really struggles with becoming a scribe. She is really frustrated by it, and she's like, I just want to be a normal kid. And her caretaker is like, I'm sorry, like, that's not your fate. But she learns all about it, and she learns how to handle the unsealing in her own way, because there is like once a year, I think once upon a time, once a year or a couple years, the mushi get released. The mushi that is sealed away, that is attached to her body, occasionally gets loose, and it'll kind of separate from by the bookworm mushi gets separated from the scrolls, and they have to catch it and put it back on the scrolls. And that is a way that they can make new scrolls so that the old ones last longer. That I really, really love her character and how strong she is, and I don't really know whatever happens to them, but I do hope that the curse ends with her. And then my last favorite character, which is Senor Stinky Man, is Arashino, and he is a seaside doctor who is fascinated by mushi, and he owns many mushi relics and prized possessions. There is even one episode where some kids get into his mushi closet, and they actually unearth and release one that was sealed away, and Ginkgo has to go find the creator of it and unseal it or something like that. But he's a really funny character. In one of the OVAs where the Sun Eater and Moon Eater mushis are talked about and featured, he wants, occasionally there'll be like mushi pillars and people won't be able to sleep and other things like that, but mushi can become visible to the human eye, and unfortunately he's not able to see them on that day. But he really wanted something to happen, but unfortunately it didn't when he was there. Again, I'm talking like bits and blurbs of the series, but before I get into my favorite episodes, I'll kind of talk about why this series made me a little bit more comfortable with being temporary in people's lives. And you're like, what does that even mean? So you know how like when you have coworkers or you have friends in university and things like that, they kind of go and come as they please, and you never really get a goodbye, or you do get a goodbye, but you're always missing them and stuff like that. This series kind of made me put at ease because Ginkgo never really revisits people. He only ever does in times of emergency, and he'll give them the little thing where they can write in an egg, and that is the way that mushi communicate with each other, because traditional letters, they don't really have places to stay, so they don't get there. So they use like the egg transportation system. That's another episode that's my favorite, but I forgot to write about it because I just wanted to talk about some of my really favorite ones. So Ginkgo never really revisits people. He doesn't really have a lot of people. Like, he doesn't have a wife, doesn't have a girlfriend, doesn't have any really close friends besides Tanyu and Arashino, and Tanyu's caretaker and stuff like that. He knows of other mushi, and it's kind of like a sad, lonely life, right? But knowing that his work is important to him, and knowing that regardless of what situation may occur, he can come over it with quick thinking, really kind of put me at ease with being okay of not having long-lasting relationships with some of the people that I know in my life, because even though I may not have known them for a long time, I know that our time spent together was really fun, and regardless of whether or not work was involved or we resolved our issues or whatever, and even if they forget me, it's still really cool to know that I made an impact on their life, whether it was big or small. Granted, I'm not saving them from any phenomenal occurrences like Ginkgo does. I am hopefully making them a better person, or letting them know to not be super serious, because I feel like a lot of the times your coworkers or people in university take themselves fairly seriously, and they don't always have to. And I want to remind you as a viewer or listener, you don't always have to take life so seriously. And I know like we have so much going on with taxes, health insurance, work, unemployment, things like that. Take it easy. Take it easy once in a while. We're literally on a floating rock in the middle of the universe, paying things that shouldn't even exist. What is a 401k? What even is credit? Credit score? Get the fuck out of here. Make you a coffee, make you tea, watch mushishi, and realize that the temporality that we experience is normal, and it's okay. And it's okay to be hurt, and it's okay to be lost. But holding on to those things can actually be a little toxic, because it won't give you, it's only a disservice to yourself to think about what could have been. Instead of thinking about what could have been, let's focus on what we can do tomorrow, or what we can do today to be a better person, or to make ourselves feel and minuscule better with everything that's going on, you know? And I think if you want a series that's super cathartic, and you want something that's gorgeous and beautiful and has some serious tones, but it's fluffy sometimes, highly recommend the series. Because if you want duality, you want serve, you want action, you want body horror, this series has it all. It has love, loss, trauma, abuse, really cool family moments, really dark and nasty family moments, weird traditions, not weird traditions. It really has a really good, it's written and drawn and directed fairly beautifully, to where despite not having linking elements besides Ginkgo and Mushi, we really get to like learn about people and things like that. And I think if you're someone who is or isn't psychological, or is or isn't interested in how it is people's minds work and things like that. I think this is a really cool series to observe, because you really get into like the nitty-gritty of like people, regardless of whether or not how much you warn them, are always gonna be selfish and are always gonna do what they want, even if it hurts other people. Because there's one episode where this man is like has like a brain mushi. I forget what it is, but it's basically like a, sorry, I had a little hair on my face. He basically has his dreams become a reality, even if they're nightmares. And Ginkgo gives him medicine, but he doesn't tell him that his dreams are becoming a reality. He basically says to take this medicine so he can dream and dream less, so that the mushi doesn't destroy everything. But eventually it does, and he didn't tell him. And this is why sometimes we gotta be serious. We gotta face the music. We gotta face the truth. But it's, again, super, super awesome series. Highly recommend watching it, whether or not you want something super serious or less serious. And it's okay. It's okay if you don't want to watch it, but you should. So let's talk about my favorite episodes. I have many favorite episodes, and I wish I could say all of them, but some of them are fairly darker than others. There's one where this person's limbs are being grafted onto them, where and it is so fucking crazy. This person's like 200 years old, and they basically get a new body every year, or like they get a new head every year. It's so insane. There's another one where so the Lute girl, I forget what her name is, but basically she was born blind. She cannot see. Her dad was a traveling mushishi like Ginkgo, and heard about a specific mushi, Ganpuku, where if you see it, it will go into your eye and it will grant you the ability to see everything, but also to see literally everything. Later on, as she becomes one with Ganpuku, she can see people's futures, and everything is finalized and determined, because as of nature's law, it will happen and is bound to happen, and it cannot be changed. She's able to see her own future up to the point of separating with Ganpuku, which is really scary. But she doesn't want anyone to experience what she experienced, because she feels like so regardless of everything she did, she couldn't really change anything. And eventually one day her father disappeared, and she was able to see him, and she wasn't able to help him. And that is why she's like, I want to get rid of these eyes. And Ginkgo helps her, but he does it in a way where he actually gets rid of the Ganpuku in her eyes, but the Ganpuku takes her eyes with him. And she sees it being buried in the ground, and that was actually the Ganpuku being put away so that it can go into someone else's eyes that isn't a human. But I love her because she's really talented with the lute, and she basically knows of mushishi and all the stories and things like that, and she's just such a cool badass character because she survived not being blind, having intense eyesight, and then being blind again. What a badass, honestly. So let's talk about my other favorite episodes that aren't that one. The Green Throne is where we meet a kid whose drawings come to life, and it is because of a mushi living in him, or the mushi surrounding him, that's why everything that he touches comes to life. No, it's because of the dish that he uses. The dish is used in a koki ceremony, which is where they have the light vein and they get to see it and stuff like that. The mushi light vein is basically just where like all of the essence of like life travels and things like that. So where like the mountains are thriving is where a light vein has passed through. You should definitely read the wiki. There's a lot of stuff that may make me sound like crazy, but it's all in the manga, it's all in the series, and it's really, really interesting to see how the way nature works in that anime. But yeah, his grandma actually became a mushi. I don't know if it's because of because she's not a ghost, but he basically, she becomes transparent and stuff. And he's able to stay with her. That was a really good episode. That one's, I didn't explain it very well, but it's still really good. Light of the Eyelids. Oops, mushi in your eyes. So she's plagued by a mushi, and I don't know if it's the Tokoyami or if it is the Ginkgo, one of the mushi that basically eats the light in her eyes, and so she's not able to see. This was a really cool body horror episode. He's actually able to like withdraw it kind of, but there was so much living inside of her eyes that he couldn't get rid of all of it, and so he kind of Oh yeah, in this episode he has 2 eyes, and we're like, what? This bitch only has 1 eye. It's because one of them was a fake eye. He gives that to her, and she's able to see with that eye, and he's back to being a 1-eyed baddie. I think that one really, really cool body horror. And then the episode that I talked about where we get to see Noi and Yoki, the one-eyed fish. I talked about that one in the beginning, and how we meet Yoki and how he turns into Kiko. I also want to talk about one of my other favorite ones. I don't remember what the name of it is, but it's basically where we meet a boy who gets disowned by his parents or whatever. He's basically sent away because he can see Mushi and they think he's crazy. So they send him to the mushishi, and he, in that residing area, who basically has the power of the Mountain Lord. And the Mountain Lord is the guardian of the mountain where through the light vein passes. Basically meaning that they balance the life of the mountain, and then it's made to whatever happens, it's all balanced, and they cannot leave the mountain, basically. And they're chosen by the law that governs everything, which is basically just nature's law. The last episode of season 2, which is an OVA, we really get to see how nature's law can be hasty and nasty, because we find out in that episode and in the OVA as well that humans were actually previous mountain lords, but because they are so frail, because their hearts are so fragile, because they are always going to be connected to humanity, they're not an animal, that it is not a wise choice for humans to be chosen as mountain lords. He becomes it because his wife killed it when she was training him to be a mushishi, and for some reason she killed it, and then he became the mountain lord without knowing. But because the mountain is going into chaos, and he no longer wants to be, or Ginkgo warns him that he shouldn't do it or whatever, he actually calls a larger mushi, which is a giant snake, to eat him, and thus becomes the current mountain lord. That one, I kind of summarized it really fast, but it is a very, very intense episode where we learn more about the nature's law of mushishi, and we get to know more about what the guardians do, or the lords of the mountain. Super, super intense, super, super cool episode. Can you tell which ones are my favorite? The ones that are the most saddest and the most intense. But again, really, really gorgeous and beautifully drawn series. The art again differs a little from the manga, and I'll probably revisit and maybe make another episode when I read the manga again, but super, super gorgeous, wonderful series, extremely cathartic if you're someone who looking for something that's a little bit different and maybe embodies all the elements I previously talked about, because we do have a wide array of things that are talked about. And I think the reason why this works so well as an anthology series versus it having an overarching plot is because I feel with plots that move so fast, like in Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen and even Naruto, the actual manga, not the series, you kind of get hit with a lot at once. And with this one, we're kind of eased into it. We have a mysterious protagonist, we have a weird, wild world of things that aren't normally seen to the human eye, but people who have a certain ability can see it. It's a really, really nice, I think, mysterious, comforting slice of life, all the above anime that you can get into, because when you go to the wiki page, it has 3 different categories on it. Really, really good, nice series, and again, I cannot recommend it enough. If you're a manga reader, you can read the manga and really see the detail and all the things that the mangaka took into account. And if you like the anime a little bit more, really, really nice. I'm trying to think what other was my favorite ones. The previous OVA the OVA ending one to season 1 was really interesting, because that mushi basically, it eats people, or it eats things, and it kind of takes their DNA and returns it back to its base form, and then whatever rises up, which is our little seeds to reproduce, are embryos of all kinds of plants, of animals, of even humans. And it is an entire island of where people can reincarnate themselves, and they are literally born the exact same. The struggle plot of that one is that a daughter was forced to give birth. Not forced, she accepted, but she was like, the person who I'm going to give birth to is not going to be my mother. It is going to be my child, and I'm going to raise her the way that I want to. So she essentially gives birth to her mom, And as her kid gets older, she realizes more and more how she's becoming her mom, and she's struggling with it because it's her kid, but it also reminds her so much of her mother, and it's really, really bugging her. And Ginkgo comes and starts to study it, and because if it's a new mushi, he is there. He loves researching new mushi. In a couple episodes, he's really enthusiastic about it, and of course, Tanyu is always there to learn about it and to have further records in the archives. And I forgot to mention, the reason why the Karabusa family even has archives and stuff like that is because of how learning about the stories and about the mushi helps seal away the forbidden mushi. And so that's why they have such an extensive history about it. And if you are a mushishi and want to have access to the archives, you have to talk to the current scribe and tell her stories about mushi that she doesn't know about, so that you can learn more about the secrets or whatever. But yeah, that episode was kind of a wild ride because you really like get down to like the nitty gritty of her morals and how weird it is, and how the fuck does that mushishi, how does that mushi even recreate the DNA of people? It's really weird. But she basically, she drank ate the little embryo, and then she got pregnant, and then she gave birth to her mom. That's crazy, but there was no incest involved. And there's I think 5 or 6 people currently that reside on that island that have been reborn. Literally someone remarried their wife 20 years later. She was an old ass man, and she was a young, nice, or middle-aged lady. Crazy. This person's kid died when they were 5 or 6, and then they just had the kid again, and now she's there and thriving. Really, really insane episode, but really, really peaceful as well, because you can see the person who was struggling with having their mom be their kid know that even though she doesn't like her mom, she's still being raised as her kid. Really weird end to that, but again, really, really nice, reflective on human society, I feel like, series. If you like, my cat is on my fucking table right now, and I'm gonna throttle him. Anyways, if you like this episode, if you're like me, you want more of me, you can follow my socials at Isnosomnia, ISNOSOMNIA, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You can also follow my YouTube, Cecilia G, where this visualizer will be uploaded after the audio gets uploaded to Anchor and Spotify. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next week.